A very, very good evening. This is Arnav Chaudhary. You are live on my YouTube channel, arunfoot, and it is October the 28th, 2025. It's a Tuesday. It's another Indian football discussion with the focus on the ongoing Super Cup, which is being held in Goa. And at the start of a video, as I always like to do, like, share, and subscribe arunfoot here on YouTube, on other social medias with arunfoot.com. I need your support. And watch the short videos that I try and make on a daily basis. Been trying to do daily sort of recaps of the group stage of what's been happening, and subscribe because we've been growing quite nicely along since crossing the 3,000 mark. We're already at 3,194, so we've grown substantially over the last few weeks. So do help me continue to grow this channel, and thank you for that as well. Good and Arvind, good evening, Zoravar. It seems Petratos' time is over at Mohammad Supergiant. It's better for him to be released, says Zoravar. It is, I think, a topic that at Mohammad Supergiant that will be discussed if the people like it or not. But I think it is an issue. I think one has to be honest enough to say that Petratos, with all that he is capable of playing, that all that he is capable of doing, that Dimi is most probably no longer at his prime, and therefore that makes it difficult for him to be able to play as good as he has in the past. So in my opinion, I agree with you that point that that his time most probably is up, and that will be interesting to see what happens next. And therefore, we will have to see if the ISL happens, that if in January Mohammad Supergiant make a change in regard to their foreigners. Good evening, Siddharth. Welcome back. Hi, Rudro. Clubs with an all-Indian squad of Super except Chennai FC. Yeah, I think what the problem is at the moment is you see certain teams, they've trained for a week, some have trained for 2 weeks, some have been in training for 2 months. I think the gulf in difference at the moment is much less than it normally would be, because I think a lot of players are not anywhere near their prime, and we saw that yesterday, that Mumbai City seemed to be in a good nick, even playing younger players, while Sporting Club Delhi still have to find their ground. And we've seen a lot of teams in a different sort of state. Intakashi impressed despite having had no structured pre-season, so to say. So therefore, I think it's amongst the clubs, how do they prepare? How did they prepare? How did they get ready for this tournament? So therefore, let's see where we go. Mohammad Supergiant, Indian and foreigners exposed by local born players, shows there's hardly any quality difference in Indian players in ISL and I-League. I would not say that. As I said, this is a summary that you'll make, and you'll make, this player is great, that player is good. Rudra, to me, both Kolkata and failed to beat an all-Indian squad. I wouldn't give it much importance, because the reality is if these two teams were properly prepared, I have a feeling also interacting with certain players that some of the players are not really in the mindset, because I think a lot of players are fearing that we're moving towards an end of the Super League as we've seen it in the ISL. I think that's a worry. So therefore, for me, it's Tempo's done well, but if I understand Samir Naik properly, and they have been training and preparing at least for the Goa Pro League, so they've been in training, and it's Mohun Bagan isn't clicking, and East Bengal, with all the names that they've signed, are they really that good a team? They will have to prove it if the ISL at some stage does happen. Khalid and Goli were intense today. Yes, Khalid Jamil and Mahesh Goli were today at the ground. Something that you were demanding, and today they were there. So Rava says also Molina doesn't deserve to manage Mohammad Supergiant anymore. Rava, I don't know, and so to me, I don't know if what are your options. Again, Mohun Bagan has been as good as they have been, because there is So to me, what are your options, right? Bangalore FC, two foreigners saying they don't want to play in Super Cup or so the pitch conditions will other club players follow it too, although a source said all players will play. So a source of BFC. So that it's a point. The Fatota ground, I've spoken to a few people, it's a problem because it seems like they have not maintained the hybrid ground, the hybrid grass. There's weed which has come through below into the mesh and has killed, so to say, the sub base of the ground, it's something is something of a problem. We saw that especially in the India-Singapore match, or even in the Al-Nassr match, of how much of the ground, when it was not raining that heavily, how when players got underneath the ground and then they got a chunk of it out, which means that the soil is not fixed to the ground, to the mesh, and that to me is, I think, a big problem. Do you think Khalid should try out other players with the remaining AFC Asian Cup qualifiers? Or valid question to me is, if the under 23s are playing friendlies of their own, I would look at, yes, potentially other players, but I wouldn't look at the under 23s. Right? But my question is, who is there? Who will stay? Who is my access, my backbone of the team? That's a question that nobody seems to be able to answer me at the moment, because I think that's, in my opinion, a very, 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 very important thing, that we need to have a backbone in that national team. And if we don't have that, I think we'll be struggling massively, and that's something which we at some stage needs to be sorted. Otherwise, things will not improve. There was no quality gap between Indian players in ISL and I-League to begin with. ISL was only better because of the foreigners. No, Zorawar. Not true. I think the ISL Indians and the I-League, watch the I-League again, and these kind of Super Cups again. How can, I don't know, Grimsby Town beat a Premier League team? So Super Cup and all these AIFF Shield, Durand Cup, whatever you want to play. To me, there is some quality in there which you don't have, and there is a gap. But again, look at the ground condition, look at the overall organization of this tournament, you will not see it. And there are a lot of factors why we are in this state where we are in, and therefore we don't see it. Mohammad Supergiant and East Bengal playing IIFF and Durand, all teams at the same level. No, they're not. That's my whole point. Playing the IIFF Shield, Durand Cup has been, I don't know how many weeks, months ago. It's been a disjointed thing. It's not organized better. It's not organized well. So that has to be said. And therefore, East Bengal and Mohun Bagan, are they really prepared? They don't look like that. Take out Mohammad Supergiant, foreigners, Dempo will beat Mohammad Supergiant. No, they won't. Again, it might look to you, will it be a massive difference? Who knows? I don't think so. I still believe that the ISL Indians are better than the ISL. The ISL Indians are better than the I-League foreigners. And look at it, for example, good example, Gokulam Kerala was playing with foreigners, and look at the way that it looked different, and let's see. Molina is basically a foreign version of Khalid. Oh no, Zorawar. You are comparing someone who has been technical director of the Spanish Football Association with an Indian coach. Sorry, no, there is no comparison between these two guys. Doesn't work. I now saw the interview from 420 grams with Ravi Pushkar. Ravi Pushkar sounded not too optimistic about ISL happening. Roshan, Ravi said what I think, who understand, those who understand will say that. We have a 1% chance of the ISL happening, right? So, that's a problem. And again, we are not facing those issues, those problems, because we don't want to look at those issues and problems, right? We are fine, Super Cup happening. Oh, again, you guys are making comparisons about these things which you normally wouldn't be talking about. We're talking about comparisons because yeah, we can talk about it. But to me, there is no comparison on that front. And therefore, the problem is in the ISL teams, the preparations, what's happening. I've been having a few ISL players getting in touch, foreign and Indian, and asking what's happening, right? And it is so let's see where we are. So the current situation of Indian football makes I-League and ISL players equal at the moment. Yeah, so there is, so for me, the ISL teams and their preparations of whatever has been, it's now, I think, taking a psychological toll on the players without having a clarity of what's going to happen. It looks like I-League teams are currently more prepared than ISL teams, and that's honestly very disappointing. I don't know, because the I-League teams also live in the la-la land that the I-League is surely happening. If ISL doesn't happen, and yeah. So that's the reality. At least Mohun Bagan, Superjan, Ismail have matches under the belt rather than Tempo or played nothing. AIFF Shield, have you looked at those matches? Have you looked at the Durand Cup before that? Okay, I've got matches under my belt, but what kind of matches do I have? Again, these nuances is something which you need to understand, right? And for Dempo, there is something to play for. There is something to play for because for them, it is something to be able to compete with two teams with whom they used to compete in the I-League or NFL in days earlier. Abik said Kerala Blasters see release home kit only if ISL happens. There's been no home kit this season. Yeah, Ruto, that's a reality, a danger. That's what I'm telling you, guys. That is a real danger. If I, you, we like it or not, that is a real danger of the Indian Super League not happening. I mean, it is as it sounds. It is. We are in a very, 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 very tricky scenario. So to me, we need to be honest about this. By the way, what happened regarding FIFA ban? Zorawar, at the moment, as I understand, it is between, that clause 23.3 has been removed from the AIFF constitution. I'm not sure if the AIFF has informed FIFA because that's part of the process. But if that happens, if that is done, then the ban for now is avoided. So therefore, that would be the status. That how I understand it. I hope that the AIFF is communicated to it, because if they don't communicate to it, so yeah, that's the point. Let's wait and see. Friday morning, if there's a letter from FIFA telling AIFF you're banned, then we know that the AIFF once more and one more thing has not done its homework, and that hopefully that Roshan, the deadline is Thursday, 30th of October is the deadline. So therefore, let's wait and see. Why can't the AIFF host the Super Cup across 4 different venues for each group? That way, the pitch would at least get some recovery time between matches versus the same issue. Arnav, because it's a cost issue. It's easy to say, play in XYZ. Again, Goa came forward and said, listen, we're covering certain level of costs. So therefore, that is the problem. And I think it's easy to say, play in 4 venues and then this, that. AIFF won't do it. AIFF will go to someone and say, listen, please, can you host all 4? Now, unseasonal rains, planning. Doesn't work. That's why if the money was there, if the season was running properly, a Super Cup spread across the season, straight knockout, would have worked better. All India Gold Cup going really well with great crowd and pitch. AIFF needs to learn from them. Okay, so that for the moment, ISL and League Indian players are equal in quality. Okay, if you think so. Optimistic, you want Raghushra to sound optimistic, and even after poaching more than 100 sponsors just to hit what's after Super Cup, and you want him to sound positive. Yeah, but Aditya, that's what yeah. I read on X that FSL would take the rights again in the end. Is it true? Who knows that? Everyone's speculating, and So, there is nothing happening at the moment. There is a process. People have asked questions, queries. People have gone to meetings. Has anybody put a bid to the AIFF? Anybody? What's the answer? It's a big no, right? So, to me, the question here at the end of the day is, will the league or will any league happen or not? Right? And if Reliance or if it's there or whatever that Reliance body picks it up or not, so therefore for me, again, and people are speculating, right? So therefore for me, that's not happening, and let's wait and see what happens. So therefore for me, as I said, at the moment, I don't think we are in a position to discuss the rights issue, because as long as nobody picks up the rights or places a bid, that's the whole point. There is no bid placed officially with the AIFF, because the AIFF has to clarify things, and that has been pushed. Where's the window? The process was supposed to, 15th of October, deadline set by the Supreme Court. 16th of October, actually, the tender comes out. Questions have been asked. Until today, the answers have not been given. That has been extended to 30th of October. 5th of November, supposedly now the tender is supposed to end. Maybe that will be postponed again to, So is that excuse going to be that Dempo have something to play, Mohan Bagan, Supajan? Don't you know how you're sounding now? But I'm just saying what I think. I sound like I sound. If you don't agree with me, if you think something different, think what you want to think. It's up to you. Someone has asked me my opinion on a matter, right? You or anybody doesn't have to agree with it. If I think that is what I think and I feel, I will say that. I'm not going to say what people want to hear. I will say what I think. And I think most of the time people will not agree with me because, again, right? Where's the understanding of the thing? Are you talking to players? Are you talking to people? Do you know the situation around the Indian Super League? I think there are certain people who are playing on a football field who are not in the state of mind to play football. They would rather be sitting there and thinking, what do I do with my future? So that's the reality. Dempo doing well? Yeah, great. But there are also the other realities. Either you accept them or you don't. So what's happening? Will ISL happen? Yeah or not? Mohammed, 1% chance. At this moment, if you ask me, there is a 1% chance of the ISL happening. And if you listen to people, yeah. If East Bengal Monma would have beaten Dempo, people would be like, there is large difference in quality, but since an all-Indian team held them, people mentally issued with that happening, not ground issues. Okay, Nadeem, yes, agree, we should appreciate Dempo showing the quality in Super. Yeah, of course. But listen, if that's again, and we go back to the quality issue, which we've been talking about, the men's national team. I don't want to talk about the women's team because that is, I think, if after the Iran game, the SOS bells were not ringing, they should be ringing even more, right? So, if we play like this, we played yesterday against Nepal, and Savitra Bandari is an Asian level striker. Yeah. So, yeah. Do you think Mohammad Supajan Manjun did some of ideas with AIFF or hasn't been banned? No, I said the disciplinary committee will come together at some stage in November and then make an announcement. Mohan Bagan is out of the tournament. Again, and this, some of you guys go directly into conspiracies and think, oh, this has happened, that has happened, that's why this has happened. Guys, there are a lot of problems across the field here and there and everywhere. And they'll get their punishment. It's not Indian football where a player can illegally get transferred and nobody, raises an eyebrow about it. But hey, welcome. Or do we know, in regard to the I-League, who's actually relegated or not? I just heard that CAS has dismissed the Sporting Club Bengaluru case, but do we know who's relegated, who's promoted, who's an I-League club, who's an ISL club, who's this, who's that? There are so many questions in the background open, Yeah. Even after spending crores, Kolkata and failing to beat an all-Indian squad, they should be shameful. Do they bother? Rudro, you are talking that they couldn't beat an all-Indian squad. I would rather talk about Mohun Bagan not traveling to Iran, which was even more shameful because it was not a national shame, it was a global shame for them. So this is where they are. Do they care? No, they don't. Does their management cares? No. If in the end they win the tournament, no one's going to talk about it, right? That's the problem of football. They can't give any excuse at all after claiming National Cup and discriminating between tournament on their values that there is nothing to play for. Okay, Path. On 5, can we get the answers whether ISL will happen or not? As I said, 1% chance of ISL happening. Therefore, young academy players humbled so-called National Club of India, says Newton Chacha. What do you know about Sport 5, German-based sports marketers? Saw some speculation. I think Sports 5 is a big Germany-founded, Hamburg-founded sports management company. They work in global sports, amongst others, in football. And but I know that sports, there were a few companies who have looked at the rights. Again, why? Because that's part of their jobs. They do that around the world. They have a look at it. And, so therefore for me, it's part of their job. And I've myself been approached, I don't know, like four different agencies from around the world who said, they're looking at it. They looked at the tender and had a few questions and answered them as they wanted to. But I know that none of them actually gone forward with it because they got back and said, you know what, numbers don't add up. And that's the problem, right? The numbers just don't add up. It's a one-way street. If you want to do, the 37.5 crores is a nice thing to get the rights, but how are you going to monetize the rights of Indian football, of the Indian Super League? That is your biggest problem at the moment in time where we are struggling with Indian football. East Bengal couldn't defeat all Indian squad of Dempo, but they smashed Chennai FC 4-0, which appeared their national team players and also were all Indian. Are we missing something around there? Aditya, that's football to you, And that's football to you. One team you beat, the others you don't beat, and the same thing happened with Mohun Bagan as well, but in the reverse. And again, 2 goals in a few minutes for East Bengal. That was most probably the trick today, which made Chennai collapse. You never know if the match remained goalless, if something could have happened or not. But once the goals came, it was done and dusted. Do you think AIFF could answer 100 questions sent by AIFF? Aditya, they've sent many more questions, and there are other questions from others who've been on those calls. So let's see if they can, let's see. Dempo have everything to play, whereas Mohun have nothing to play, as they will be banned in AFC, so winning Super Cup is nothing. Rudra, I'm not talking in that way. I think, if you're a Mohun Bagan, and Mohun Bagan's problem is very simple. The AFC thing is a thing of the past, but I think, to me also, if you look at the team, Durand Cup, AIFF Shield, now the junior players playing in the Kolkata League, they're not a settled team. They're not the same team. The early questions were on Dimi Patrato, so that's right. What consequence does it have no league happening? Roshan, that's a good question. Because it will have an impact on the clubs. It will impact on the players and the coaches. And does it have an impact on the AIFF? Does it have an impact on the future? Yes, it does. But the question is, where does this go? How do we progress? So therefore, for me, I don't know if the AIFF, look at the AIFF and look at how the AIFF has been run, and therefore that's a challenge in itself. And looking at the speed of how things are operating, again, I think 250 plus questions asked post those calls on the tender. That's not easy to answer, because a lot of those things that are being answered are generic questions which cannot be answered because you don't have a body in the background which is actually there to give you the framework of running that new, setup. That's the challenge now. The AIFF is in charge of the ISL, but have they done their homework to be in charge of the ISL as a national body? Simple answer, there's no. And that is going to hurt them, because putting a tender document together is the easy part. But there are so many questions and queries that come out of that document, which is not being answered at the moment. Your opinion regarding Mohanbag fans' protest a week or two back, where a minor girl was beaten, police set up by Mohanbag Supergiant. Zorawar, it's all shown. Huh? The club is not answering the questions. Right? The first question that Mohanbag Supergiant needs to answer is, why didn't you travel to Iran? And don't tell me, oh, my players didn't want to travel. Oh, I didn't have insurance. The rest of the world is traveling in football or in other sports to Iran. The only team in the world who's not traveled twice in the last 12 months, Mohanbag Supergiant. That's a simple question. And I think it's a valid question that the fans need to ask. But I after that, that protest around that AIFF Shield game, I've not seen much protest after that. I don't know if it's died out, but that, I can let Mohanbag Supergiant off the hook this time, considering all the protests. So the locker room must be grim. But what's the excuse of East Bengal? All the hype, all the money spending, yet not a single trophy, not even AIFF Shield. Aditya, you use the word hype. East Bengal have a team with potential, but if you look at what had happened in the run-up to the Super Cup in regard to Sandeep Nandi, goalkeeper coach, this, that, everything, and the reality is that East Bengal, you don't change things, and then there are questions regard to Carlos. Carlos, I think Oscar Bruzon, where it was not clear, does he continue, doesn't continue, so let's see what it is. I'm disappointed no FIFA ban is coming. Zorawar, the FIFA ban, as we thought, at the moment might not be coming, but the AIFF still needs to clarify certain things to FIFA and the AFC. If they don't do it properly, then, it can still happen. Nobody asking when IW will start. Rudra, very good question. Again, remember we were shown plans by the AIFF. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to play so many matches. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then we're going to do preparation for the under-20s. Oh, we're going to do now the under-17s. I can't do those things. I don't have money. If I can't run the I-League, how am I going to run the IWL? We need to be honest, and in Indian football context, the women's game is cross-subsidized by the men. Very simple. And if that's not happening, then it's a problem. And if you look at the team and look at the players and look at the quality what we saw, then they need their league. They not only need the league. They need the league. Sorry, they need the league more than anything else. So yeah, that's the reality. Arunfoot doesn't want to be said Dempo players played well against one so-called best players because that's against the theory of less teams in ISL. Nadeem, you don't need to tell me what I think. Right? If Dempo played well, yeah, Dempo played well. Was that the question asked? No, it wasn't the question asked. Right? My theory stays, irrespective of what happens in the Super Cup. If you think that because of one match in the Super Cup or two matches, or even if what happens in the Super Cup, that theory changes, no, it doesn't. People like you don't want to understand what is the need of the hour in Indian football because you think you understand Indian football. Work for 1 minute in Indian football and then let's have a conversation, because you will understand the nitty-gritties and all the problems that are there in the background at the moment. An expanded league is the most stupid thing that anybody with a little bit of IQ will never say, because commercially it doesn't make sense even from a player's perspective, because we don't have the player pool. But hey, we've got so many players at all levels. This is the problem. We have too many people who think they understand Indian football, even people working in Indian football. And you have no clue about football. Just watching it and being a fan, I've learned this the hard way. If you say that in this, my part of the world in regard to Europe, people will laugh in your face, right? Because you understand things. No, you don't. That is the problem, my friends. But hey, you know, you understand like others do. You do not. What do you think about Mahesh Singh Naoram? Devanshu, a player who I feel could do better, should do better, be more consistent. But yeah, he's an Indian footballer, so there's no consistency. Few parking the bus, and people forget the Dempo performance in 2024 I-League reality. We told they didn't have the chance to pass until Real Kashmir pulled out. Aditya, but who's going to understand? What went wrong with Bagan today? Bagan seems to have internal issues. They have massive issue, Bablu's animation. Again, I am not sure if the whole team said that they wanted not to travel to Iran. Right? If you look at the interactions of Jay McLaren and especially of Jason Cummings, you know, the point is they're nowhere near the team they were last season. And again, if you are going to say that an ISL team needs to perform to the level that they are capable of, and will they, the one or the odd team will do, I think, you know, that most of the teams are a mess because the players are a mess. Now you'll say, oh, they earn so much, this, that. Yeah, nice. It's not about money anymore. It's about the long-term future, right? By the way, can you tell all the Indian football fans to stop hyping Bryson just for his goal against Al Nassr? He's not the national team material, yet people are hyping him over. So, however, yeah, on one side, I'll agree with you. On the other side is, you know, the point with him is that at least he has certain capabilities and potential, and Manolo has spoken about that very few have. Now the question Bryson Fernandes to me is, will he become another Romeo Fernandes? Yesterday I saw something on Insta that he's playing some village tournament in Goa now. You know, the guy was one of the FC Goa Goan boys, you know, who even went to Atletico Paranense and then but trained at least there for a few months. And now he's playing. Is he that? Or can he move it up? Because if I look at Bryson, and I compare him with, let's say, Liston, Bryson's potential is higher than Liston, you know? So let's see. Bhagan Aditya, very simply said. Best game of the tournament so far. Proud of them both. Molina playing Dimi and Robson together, they both have same profile. See, the point is, what is Molina trying to do? Is he playing his best 11 throughout the tournament? No, he will not do that. He will. I think a lot of coaches will try and test their benches and test their players. That's also a fact. Even if a club wins the Super Cup but league doesn't happen, then no AFC slot, right? Since minimum match required not met. Bablu's animation, I don't even know what we're going to have next season. This is your question is very valid, but I think there's nobody who can answer that question at this moment in time. I think AFC, FIFA, overall are monitoring the situation. Let's be clear about that. But I don't think they have an answer to you to say this is going to happen, that's going to happen, because we ourselves don't know what's happening in Indian football, right? If the financials don't match, doesn't that mean 37.5 crores high? If the I-League tender comes, the minimum value is very less. Will these market teams be interested? Nadeem, 37.5 crores for what? To give to the AIFF, so someone picks up the rights, runs the league, has to spend on organizing the league, prize money. Broadcasters will not give you money, so you will have to, again, pay money for a broadcaster. The clubs want a certain share of the pie, which doesn't exist. And on top of all of this, with the chaos that has been happening, the little value that the ISL has created over the last decade, that's been killed. And on top of that is the ban on betting companies sponsoring sport. That was the driver over the last 2-3 years in regard to sponsorships. I don't know who asked me yesterday. I think Rudu, it was you who asked me yesterday, or stated yesterday, 90% of front of shirts are actually without a sponsor. Yeah. Most of the clubs are, if they have a brand in front of shirt, it is someone linked to the club. Right? East Bengal has Imani on the front of shirt. Right? Now that India is going for each and every tournament Asian category to be its host, is it due to this 2036 thing or what? Anyways, I don't know. Each and every tournament in Asian category in across sports, or are you meaning just football? Please clarify. Sir, if AIFF is 100% owner of ISL, then what commercial partner have? So why to invest in that league where you have nothing? Raj, thank you for answering the question. That's the whole problem. You are supposed to pay 37.5 crores. The AIFF will decide in an own special body. But can you control that thing? And that is the whole point. To me, that's the biggest challenge I think that the AIFF will have in whatever it's doing at this moment in time, because we're not where we want to be. So that is part of the problem. The Supreme Court has put the AIFF in a spot because they put something into the Constitution which nowhere in the world is the case. Right? The Premier League is not organized by the English FA. La Liga is not organized by the Royal Spanish Football Association. The Bundesliga is not organized in Germany by the German Football Association. Yeah. Other that epigenetic clock testing is more accurate than TW3, but the cost hurdles are too much. Does the AIFF invent any of these? No, TW3 is the one which is the one that is being utilized. And again, it has its weaknesses. I remember at Round Glass Punjab, we had a player, and the late Dr. Vesipes was involved in that testing. The problem is very, very simple, that there were three tests done on the player. One reading was, one reading was that it was 14.6. Another reading was, I think, 15.4. Another reading had him at 16 plus. What do you do with this kind of a player? How old is that player? Is he 14? Is he 15? Or is he 16? And if you would ask the fourth and the fifth, they would most probably come out with an age which might be between these. So that is the problem of this, the density and the age of your bones in TW3 testing. The Mohun Bagan fan club had a meeting 2 days after the AIFF Shield protest and girl being beaten. Mohun fans wanted to meet Vinay Chopra, but he didn't meet. Only Devashi Datta met them. Fans have put demands in front of him. Yeah. Again, what can Devashi Datta as the president of Mohun Athletic Club do? I don't know. Nothing going to happen. IFA and Maidan clubs are, says Angry Birds. Hi Kumar, welcome back. Bryson has potential. I think he should be at least tested in the national team, at least at U23. Aditya, I think he needs to be there in and around. Bryson has certain quality, and that finish against Al Nassr, let's speak about it. That's better than most others, right? Most of the other players most probably would have skied it, but does a lovely turn, puts it in the back of the net. I'm a little surprised that he has not at least been considered to be around to train with the national team. You can't go against Maidan culture. That's the problem. The Maidan culture in Kolkata is part of the problem why East Bengal and Mohun Bagan are playing the way they are playing. Mahesh Naram Singh is good in dribbling but lacks in physicality. Yeah, Krishna, surely. He lacks in physicality. He's got good dribbling, as you say, but he's got also a certain level of potential, but again, that physicality aspect is there with a lot of players. That even my dad had stopped talking about domestic football, and he's always been the most optimistic when he says these players don't have hunger like players of Sham Thapa category. Angry Birds, when all those names, I've had enough discussions with the PK Banerjees and the Chuni Goswamis on these matters. Even Shamda, I've had discussions on this. It is very difficult to compare football over the ages. Football today is a different sport than it was 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago. And that is something which needs to be understood. I again say this, he said it in front of me. That Franz Beckenbauer once said, one of the greatest players of all times, the late Franz Beckenbauer said it, and I was there. He said, listen, we used to play walking football compared to what is played, and this was about a decade back. So therefore, the comparisons don't work. Didi has given them assurance to make changes, reasons why they have pulled down the protest a bit, but the fan clubs have told Devashatta that for the time they have slowed down protests, but if their demands are not met, they will restart protest again. Listen, I wouldn't have thought of stop protest. I don't think that's the right approach. You need to put pressure on the club, on the management to do what is needed to take the club forward. I've taken selfies with few Odisha FC stars and mostly Mauricio, the club legend. I shouldn't say this, but even when the team performed bad in AFC or I never seen Mauricio act 1% of how team acted. Okay, Aditya. You see any proactive changes leading up to 27 when the 2030 World Cup qualifiers kick in early stages? Kundan, we have much more basic, problems, right? 2027 is so far away, and we have so many issues and problems, and I still don't know if we are in a position to discuss of where we are and what how can we develop. So therefore, too early to talk about it. Why Molina not test Sohail Bhatt for full time? Because Krishna, he doesn't see him as one of his striking options. What is he in the pecking order? You've got McLaren, you've got Cummings, you've got Petratos. Sohail Bhatt is fourth, if at all. Maybe even Manveer Singh as moves in front of him of a striker. Sohail Bhatt is, as much as you would like to see him, but is he really ISL level material? That's the question. And Molina will play what he thinks is right. He will try a few other things, but if he doesn't believe, this is the problem. If one coach doesn't do it, we can talk about it. But every coach not picking certain set of players that fans are demanding that should be playing, to me is a clear-cut sign that most of these coaches, because I'm not there, you are not there in everyday training. There must be a reason to that. Even if ISL starts, AIFF will own majority of the league. So that's at the moment the plan. Yes. I think I've stopped believing that in football has a potential. Aditya, I think we have potential. The question is how we can get it out of the system. What is happening with the ISL tender? PC Gamer Tech, there's nothing happening. The questions were asked by interested entities, but they have not gotten answers yet. Is it today AIFF should finalize the queries for tenders? No. Krishna, extended because too many questions asked, at least by a couple of days. Across the sports, Dada, you may refer to KL now. The latest post was something Asian Indoor Games. Okay. Yeah, but 2036. Yeah, it's like talking about football. 2036 is nice to talk about, but things need to happen. If things don't happen, I don't know if we're going to continue to talk about 2036. Now that if no one bids for the tender, what will AIFF do? Kumar, that's a good question. I don't think AIFF have a plan B at the moment, ready. That's what I'm saying. The likelihood, to me is that danger is there. It's a massive danger of where we are, and therefore, we'll have to wait and see. I don't see a solution. I'm very curious to know why these 4 to 6 companies want to invest in a league where you have to beg to AIFF. Raj, they're not showing wanting to invest. Asking queries doesn't mean that they're going to invest into the league. Do you think that FanCode will invest into the league? Even you, even I could have gone to them and asked queries. The clubs have asked questions, right? Do you think that Conscience Football or Conscience Sports as a group will invest into Indian football? No. It companies asking questions, attending meetings doesn't mean that they will be, this is not even an LOI. I remember once Dempo relegated to I League 2 and was on verge of shutdown, having no investor. Now they're grinding results in team with foreigners. Raj, they always had an investor. Dempo group of companies. So how can you say they never had an investor? It was the commitment of Dempo group of companies, of Srinivas Dempo and Co. Again, Srinivas will not like to hear that, but the commitment has not been there, right? And therefore they went down, focused on building infrastructure and academy grassroots. Yeah. And now they're back in the I League since last year. People are talking about 2027, buddy, we are about to drown, says Aditya. Yeah. Right. That's the problem. Very well said, Aditya. Now, what is different done in a league and MLS than ISL, and can we play the nation like ours? Angry Birds, the point is with the MLS, look at, they failed with their system X number of times. They had the NSL in the 70s. Pele, Beckenbauer, George Best, Gerd Müller, were some of the best in the world were playing. New York Cosmos and all the other teams who were there. Bob Houghton, who went on to coach India. Bob was coach of Toronto Blizzard, right? It failed. 1994, post the World Cup, they started MLS. Late 90s, early 2000s, MLS failed. They restructured another time. And then they found the model. David Beckham needed 7-8 years to get into the league as Inter Miami. Right? It is not, David Beckham's coming, let's get him into the league. No. He had to fulfill the criteria to get into the league. And you have to have a minimal investment, into the football. You have to have a minimum investment into your infrastructure, build a football-specific stadium, which is a minimum investment of $250 million. We are nowhere, guys. Indian leagues are superficial. Even the IPL. There is no entity in the IPL which owns the infrastructure. In other parts of the world, that's the most normal thing. That is part of our problem, and we don't have a solution to that. Hi, Devanshu. Why only our football league is struggling so much, but at the same time, countries like Iraq, Iran, Uzbekistan, Vietnam, Malaysia, this is organized league efficiently? Because we've poured in too much of money. We think, looking at the IPL, that money solves everything, right? So, to me, we think money solves everything, and we are not willing to do grassroots, youth football, coaching, infrastructure, scouting, competitions, all those basic things. We think we'll get away without doing all of this. Is today you think future info is good, looks in danger? Krishna is massively in danger. The league at the moment is not happening, period. I don't need to go to any other point. The ISL, the league at this stage today is not happening. Reality. So therefore, we will have to figure out what's going to happen next, right? I'd say ISL coach needs to have Indian coaches. They're already bad, even with the presence of a foreign coach. I think the bottom half teams should give chance to Indian coaches to save money. Yeah, but that's not gonna work, Aditya. If you want to improve, you need better, the better ones coming in. But better coaches are also able to get something out of players who have something to get out of. So we need to ask our questions. How can we produce better players at all levels in Indian football? Angry Bird says we're already cooked. Yeah. Sadly, I will have to say, that's one of our problems. We are in a very tricky scenario. And to me, we need to realize that we have many, many issues and problems which you need to work on. Northeast state produce tons of footballers, but they lack in physicality. Height. Government need to think about having football from Punjab if they have some potential talent. Krishna, this I go and look at a state and I will produce players here, ABC, and I don't produce players there. It doesn't work that way. We have got a lot of players from Punjab and Haryana. Punjab, right? The goalkeepers, Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, Amrinder Singh, Gurmeet Singh, Anwar Ali, all these guys are from Punjab. So we already have that. Forget 2036 just looks at the youth players coming, not even South Asian level. Yeah, Zorawar, that's the reality. If a country like Fiji can get a Roy Krishna without much infra, then statistically we should be able to do something way better. Babalu's animation, and this is, again, statistically, we should have produced a world-class football player, right? So statistically, again, this is theory. And theory and reality doesn't always match, right? We have a problem because countries around the world are producing players. And yeah, it is very difficult, very, 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 very difficult. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But to me, I have not seen an exceptional talent, except to some extent, I would say, I'm Vijan. At least Viju Bhai is the one. You know, I think AIFF still will again invest in football. I don't know, Krishna, where you take that optimism from. Yeah, but I would hope so, but I don't think so. I don't know. Government banned gambling apps, but I'm still seeing gambling apps all over newspapers and whatnot. People are still gambling, and the black market is bolstered. What did the government even achieve? Well, they tell nothing in the end. I don't think any other party besides FSL is even considering the tender. Are they even FSTL considering the tender? Gambling is illegal. If you want to do, it's your own risk now. Zorawar was illegal earlier on, you know. So you can't ban gambling completely. And that's the problem, Zorawar. So why not be smart as a government, control gambling to a certain extent, and generate revenues from taxes? In India, nothing is banned if you know where to pay and who to pay. Personal experience. Okay. Good evening, Devoshi. East Bengal final tour. Should I be hopeful for East Bengal winning the Super Cup? And thoughts about our coach? Devoshi, I think a lot depends on the next match against Mohun Bagan in the derby. And again, the crazy situation that if Dempo scored enough goals against Chennai, if East Bengal and Mohun Bagan draw, so I think they have to score 4 or 5. You know, and the coach, I don't know, Oscar hasn't really upgraded himself over the last decade, I feel. Done work here and there, but I'm not seeing anything where I would say, you know what, Oscar is pushing it in the right direction. Will Bob Houghton come back to coaching India? Hannibal, Bob is way too old. How old is Bob Houghton? Good question. Bob Houghton, let me just check. How old is Bob Houghton? Let me check. I think he should be either around 80 or maybe above 80. Sorry, 70. Bob is 78. Yeah. Okay. So, no, Bobby, wherever you are, you're not coming back. Majority East Bengal fans are against us as they believe FS still favors Goenka and conspires against them. Yeah, I mean, that's been something that Zorawar, we've spoken a lot about on this channel as well. And it is sad that is, the thought process of fans, because it makes, in my opinion, makes no sense. The thought process in itself makes no sense because, the blunders have happened with all teams. Then I have a feeling, I see Goenka Imami leaving and all the franchise clubs shutting down. I don't know why. Anyway, that's a danger. So to me, not only them, beat the Goenkas, beat Imami, Tatas, CFG at Mumbai City, all of those things, all of the clubs, and then the rest, So let's see. Women's team is going to play an exhibition match tomorrow against Nepal and Sikkim. Yeah. So that's what has been proposed. Interestingly, it seems like that the Paljor Stadium doesn't have FIFA recognition, and therefore they couldn't host the Tri-Nation tournament over there. So therefore, an unofficial friendly between Nepal and India. They need IWL. They are out of shape. How can a team defeat Thailand but lose to Nepal and Iran? Aditya, Thailand was a lot of luck. Let's be honest, right? And, so therefore for me, that's a reality. Now, like Krishnan Chitti gave a U17 women's team player debut and senior team was never also without playing U20. She directly was national team. I mean, he can pick anyone he wants to, right? I mean, in Germany, we have a discussion about Lennart Kahl playing Bayern Munich, 17-year-old, who has not been picked for the under-17 World Cup, that he could be a candidate for the German senior team for next year's Senior World Cup. So that can happen, right? That has happened around the world. So that's not a big thing, especially in the women's game, where a lot of girls at 15, 16 actually debut for senior national teams. So that's nothing of a problem. Prasanjit says, I will support Dempo for rest of tournament. Former AFC semi-finalists, don't forget they made everyone remember. Yeah, multiple time I-League winners. Example, how as a small kid, 10 years old, pathway to become the next Lamine Yamal. Krishna, to say a 10-year-old become the next Lamine Yamal in itself is the wrong question. Football or sports doesn't work that way, and you have to work hard, play in the right academy, grow, but becoming how many people in the world will be able to become a Lamine Yamal in the next generation of footballers? 5, maybe 10, maybe less. So therefore, this question of yours is already wrong. A 10-year-old kid needs to play football, enjoy football, and grow playing football. Is that working on the quality front? That will have to wait. You have to see. Do you see Punjab FC as a contender for Super Cup? Yes, I do think that Punjab FC could be even Mumbai City. Again, it was only the first game, but both of the teams showed a certain level of quality, and that is going to be the question: is can they really showcase that and throughout the tournament? And that's going to be a question. Out of context, what should Khalid do in the game against Bangladesh on November 18? Should he try new players from this or will he stick to old uncles? Shriyansh, first of all, don't call them old uncles. That's disrespectful to the national team players. To me, the under-23s themselves are playing matches, so I think they should focus on their matches. And with the senior team, there are other players as well. Figure out what you want to do. You've got time now, right? Do you think Kerala Blasters strong contenders for Super Cup winners? Krishna, I have not seen the Blasters. You have not seen the Blasters. Let them play first, and then we can maybe have a conversation of where the Blasters stand. Let them play day after tomorrow, and then maybe they are contenders. Maybe they're not, but we'll have to wait and see. Argentina not playing Kerala. So remember, I told you from the start, it was very tricky, very difficult, and a lot of things were done not in the right way. Look at the mess that it seems like the stadium work is now, and so therefore, it's crazy, and I don't know. It's very difficult, So therefore, for me, let's see if Argentina is going to play in March in Kerala or not. Right. So a lot of questions remain unanswered, and we'll have to wait for that to happen. Since we have lost the coefficients for ACL2, what does the Super Cup winner get? PC Gamer Tag next season, we will still have 2 slots. The danger is if we drop to 13th in Asia, then we only get 1 slot, and that would be then the ISL champions. So next season, if I read the rules properly, then we still have the slot in the ACL2 and a slot in the ACL qualifiers, and then we'll have to wait and see. Khalid Jimbo is sitting in stadium, which we think will play his national team for most of them. Krishna, we'll have to wait and see. He's looking at the same players that he's looked at in the past. If we let's look at the starting lineup of Mohun Supergiant, then maybe you will get a feeling of who maybe Khalid looked at or not. Just thinking who might you have looked at. Let's just quickly go through the starting lineup. Mono Supergiant, 1 second. Where is the lineup? Where is the lineup? Don't you have a lineup? Yeah. 1 second. Where is the lineup? Okay, so we had Vishal Keth, yeah. Sal Abdul Samad, Deepak Tangri, Abhishek played today. Dipendu Biswas and Ashish Rai. So theoretically, yeah, nearly all Indians who played, maybe except Abhishek Suryavanshi were, so let's wait and see what happens. But he will have had a look at certain players. I agree with it, still early, but Punjab showed quality. I think with the young squad they got Sohail on the wings with Samir, who looked with passes. I think Punjab could get a tough fight. Garvit, as I said, one match is always difficult. Now, some people would have said after the first game, Mohun Bagan to win this group, right? East Bengal are struggling. East Bengal have problems. And East Bengal scored 2 quick goals and beat Chennai FC, and suddenly, there is something possible. So therefore, this is the way football is, right? I mean, therefore, you can't be sure of something before it's over, done and dusted, and therefore that's the reality of things. So therefore, yeah, keep that in mind, and therefore we'll have to wait and see what those teams can do in this tournament. Right, already over an hour on this live on this Tuesday, 28th of October. So we are moving towards the end of the year already. 13 likes so far. I think we can do better, and share with other people to join our conversations. We're 3,194. So thank you very much. We've grown quite a bit over the last. Yeah, and therefore, thanks a lot as always for your support, and keep supporting arunfoot here on YouTube and on my other socials as well. Right, answered your question. Sorry, I have to pick a call from my parents. After betting apps got banned, IPL valuation dropped from 12 billion to 8 billion. So the IPL in itself, as a valuation, as a good example in regard to how valuation in India happens, is overvalued. Because if I value an entity and I don't own any part of my infrastructure, how's that going to work? Right? So we've got those kind of problems. We need to work around them, right? Very difficult, but welcome to the world of Indian football or Indian sports. And therefore, we'll have to wait and see what happens. The betting apps getting banned, again, it was always in a sort of a gray area. right? It was allowed, but nobody spoke about it. And now it's dead. Hi, Utsav. Good evening. Welcome back to the channel. Yeah, so that's the problem, right? There are certain realities at the moment which are tough, difficult, and one will have to see what happens, because Indian football, Indian sports, a lot of things need to happen. Will they happen? Can they happen? Nobody has an answer, I think, and that is where we stand at this moment in time on this 20th of October. At least it looks like that over the next 2-3 days, we're not going to get banned by FIFA. That danger seems to be gone. Um, you know, so we have to wait and see what happens. Very, very difficult at the moment. Utsav says, sir, in recent KL Now video, he said Cubs average from the range of 5 to 15 crore a season sponsorship revenue. How much would, the truth does it hold? Yes, that's potential range. Rather, in the last few years, it has rather been on the lower side. Rather than 15, you would have rather moved towards 5, but the revenues have dried up. Now with betting gone, that revenue, if I look at the front of shirts, it looks difficult, right? And those are all realities at the moment. These are realities of where we stand at this moment in time, with all things happening, not happening. That makes it very complex and complicated. And therefore, for that to happen in a right, proper way is the challenge for Indian football, right? For Indian football, that's the biggest challenge. So we'll have to wait and see. Hola, Goku. Good evening. Welcome back. So there is a lot in the background, in the back end, which needs to be done, evolved, developed in Indian football for things to happen. If we want things to happen, then the people within the AIFF need to work on those things, get those things done. And at the moment, it looks tough. In my opinion, it looks very, very tough. The AIFF needs to set its house in order. They need to organize stuff. And if they are unable to do all of those things, then it becomes, it becomes very difficult, because it is a question of, can you sort things out in a way that you will able to move into the new future, into the future, into a better future also. That's the challenge. That was the challenge. That is the challenge. And that challenge is there. It is very tricky in itself. And that is going to be very interesting to see how, and not sure if it can work, it will work, but that's where we are at this moment in time. Without franchise fee, how clubs going to break even? Match revenue is pretty much dead with 400 ticket price with per attendance. Utsav, there is the franchise fee is paid from the club to the league, right? But the central pool is the money that was going to the clubs. Listen, the clubs no one is near break even, So, so therefore, So therefore, it is a very difficult situation, right? A club relying on owners' parachute money. Yes, of course. That's not parachute money, but it is money from that owners have been pumping in. There are a lot of owners who spend 300, 400 crores in the last 11 years on their football, right? And the question needs to be asked, has the money been spent rightly? So this is where we're stuck. And this is where we need to figure out how to rectify the mistakes. A bunch of academy kids, all Indians, just heard Monwa and East Bengal Super Cup back to back. That's all laughable. Inflated as salaries are, and how staying away from the lobby builds the strongest lobby. Nadeem, What point are you trying to make? Right? You've said whatever you've said, and you think you're right. Again, know the backgrounds, and then let's have a conversation, right? And this is, and you're saying the London's tweet again. Yes, again, everybody, again, not your point. Then please mark it. But again, this is right. So I don't have to agree. Yeah, did I invite? Of course I did, but I don't. Watch our conversation a few days ago with Hiren. I don't have to agree with him or anybody on certain points. I don't agree with most people on Indian football matters, to be very honest. I have my own head. I have my own, what I think reality is. So take it. That the ISL salaries are inflated, we don't need to talk about it. Is that not something that I've been saying for years? That the salaries are inflated? Indian players are the most overpaid players in the world. I've said that. And I would say that. That Indian players are not good enough. I've said that. I haven't said that. F. No Indian player will play 6th division. This, even at the moment where we're not doing well and we're struggling, they will not be able to play here. So these are realities, right? So yeah, fine. So, hi Blue, welcome back. The problem is, if we don't sort out the basics, nothing will happen. And if you think the youngers are better than the olders, that's the other problem. That's not happening. You know? Yeah. So why don't we bring championship teams for friendly match? As you said, the total ticket sales from Al Nassr were at par with the revenue of past season. It was Al Nassr and it sold because of Cristiano Ronaldo, despite not being there. Yeah. You know. So that is something of a stretch. Why? Because championship team and a friend. This is an official continental level competition match. Look at Mumbai City against Al Hilal. That Mumbai City actually went back to the DY Patil to play that game. And Mumbai City also generated revenue from that game. A championship team, first of all, will ask you money to come to India. And will a championship team generate, it's not going to happen. Because if I look, for example, the friendlies that we've organized for Bayern Munich, yeah, it was funded by the German side, made possible by German corporates. Not the 2008 match, that was made possible by Bengal PLS at the time. But after that, it was Audi, it was Lufthansa, it was Adidas who made Bayern Munich's visit possible. 2014 Hoffenheim visit was made possible by SAP and by the Bundesliga. So if you think that the ticketing, and forget the ticket sales, what he said was ticketing and to some extent some corporate stuff in the background, right? So yeah, that's the reality. Please, don't also think that we should agree with your point, and when it does differ, don't call others who know nothing on football agree to disagree. No, I don't need to do that, Nadeem. Right? I can disagree with people when you show me a valid point to disagree. If you are coming, and a lot of people come and make their point, and I can tell you that I can't really tell you in detail certain things because I know too much about Indian football. Sorry, might sound arrogant, yes, and then I'll be arrogant about it. But if you want to argue with me on certain points, you would not have to know the background. And don't tell me, oh, you know what, because I'm following Indian football, I'm reading stuff, I'm following it on Twitter. There's so much happening. There's so many conversations happening in the background, which you just simply cannot know. Right? And therefore, I can say that if I'm arrogant on that, I'm arrogant. If I'm full of myself, I am then full of myself. But I have done the hard work of knowing and understanding what is happening or not. Right? But hey, right? Everybody can have an opinion. Because if what I've said over the last 2 years, what could, would, should happen or can sadly happen, 90% or even more was right what I warned will happen to Indian football. Right? So the point at the end of the day is, when I'm talking about Indian football, there are maybe 3-4 people around the world who actually factually can have a discussion with me on that topic. I can count those people on my hand. Because the rest think they know and have no clue about football, don't have a clue about Indian football, don't have a clue about anything. You follow so many people who think they can know and understand things on Indian football. They know Jack S. But hey, you guys know, you understand. You need to be told this once in a while, which you don't like. Yeah, but okay, fine. You might not like me for that, but hey, that's me. I can be full of myself because I know what are the consequences of things. I have averted situations of Indian football shutting down. I warned people 3 years ago, you are walking into a FIFA ban. Nobody in the ecosystem believed it. Or Nawaz Chaudhary said it. I warned, I spent my own money. Nobody paid me. Right? And there are a lot of guys who've made a lot of money in the background in their own pockets with all of this, whatever's happened. I'm part of the people who initiated and did the roadmap to try and bring Indian football together so it survives. So I can have that opinion. The others can't, even if they were part of the system, because they've not been part of all these conversations of what has been happening over the last 25, 27 years that I've been seeing, observing, but also been involved in trying to ensure that Indian football stays alive. You guys dream about playing World Cups. I have left that dream in the early 2000s. It has been in the last 15, 20 years always to keep it alive. And if you don't want to understand that, be my guest. What's your review of the Mohun Bagan Super Giant Tempo match? Mohun Bagan was just not good enough. Simple. But there's so many guys saying Mahesh Gol is the reason why so many Mohun Bagan players are national team. Blue, I've given up. I've given up on this point, of trying to make people understand about these things, right? That blame A, blame B, blame C, whatever. Do that. Is it taking us forward? I don't think so. There was a buzz that Neymar's going to come. Yeah, but Utsav, he was injured. So, yeah. Will the Argentina friendly happen? No, it's not happening, Blue. As I've told you, there were too many issues around who was organizing it, who's joined. Again, suddenly, that match should cost you about 70, 80 crores to organize. Suddenly we're talking about 130 to 150 crores. Then you know what's happening with the money, right? Will they come in March? I don't have a clue. But looking at how the thing has been organized, run at the moment, we are exactly where I would have thought it would end up. Sadly, but that's the reality. My opinion is simple. They are clueless. The team combination is dysfunctional. Coaches doing some questionable stuff, and players have no incentive to play, let alone win. Yeah. Sums up Mohun Bagan Super Giant in the year 2025. It's a mess. They're a mess due to themselves, and they're a mess because what is happening around them. Right? The club is a mess. The coach doesn't seem to be in a position to do what is needed, and you're not going to move forward. Right? Are there any short-term success for Indian team without bringing POC players? No. There's not even a midterm success potential. Look at our system. We are glorifying the under 23s like, that's something that has never been before. If you talk to anyone who's worked in the system, they will talk to under 7, under 20, under 23s. Then a lot of SOS alarm bells are ringing, except with Indian football fans who seem to know everything, right? Right, great. But hey, so this is the reality. And why I've been trying to fight for POS for the last 24 years, because it's not a new thing that since yesterday that we should have been talking about this. We should have been one of the first ones to implement it. We would have played at least two World Cups. Even in the women's game, looking at our women's team at the moment, I think players of Indian origin could help us. But hey, who's going to do it? I think there's a rift among players as well. Yeah, Zorav, there is most probably to add on top, management issues. Look at the whole Iran fiasco. Molina, again, difficult to say, but as has just been said, some of the decisions just don't make sense. And then the players, yes, you have groups most probably within the squad. This whole Iran thing hasn't helped, because I'm sure, or I know that there was a group saying, hey, listen, let's go, and another group saying, no, let's not, right? And there are players, as you mentioned, looking at things, Petratos were the first to leave. Yeah, he's dead wood. He should get a lot of plaudits for what he's done for Mohun Supergiant. But at the moment, Dimi Petratos is a passenger. And if you're not playing Cummins or McLaren, then this team is not the team that it has been last season. Sadly, they won't have the crisis manager Havas, so it will go downhill from there. I mean, it is interesting that it is going to end up again, maybe, if, depending on what Dempo do against Chennai FC. But Mohun Bagan and East Bengal are back at it again, and whoever loses, is potentially going to be searching for a new coach, be it Mohun Bagan or be it East Bengal. And, Oscar has created some problems of his own as well. So we've not learned we don't seem to have learned anything, right? And this is something, it's just widely spending money. This is just widely spending money. So therefore, we are where we are at this moment in time. So therefore, for me, very, very difficult to see that how we can change things. But if I look at the group A, East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, 4 points each. Dempo have 2, Chennai have 0. So Mohun Bagan will have to beat East Bengal to make it to the semis. East Bengal can live with the draw, and if Dempo wants to get into the semis, they'll have to score 5 goals. Sorry, that's the calculation. Very simple now in Group A. Your thoughts on Sporting Club Delhi logo? I thought it looked good. I like the logo. It's a little different. I don't know what Sporting Club Delhi then means with SC Delhi, but I like the logo. I don't know, Raj, you others, what do you think about the SCD SCD logo? I've liked it. What I've seen, yeah, I liked it. Because I like the if I I'm just looking at what we had yesterday. I like the flames, the fires, and it's sort of like a badge. Yeah, it looks better. In early 2000, we implement OCI and PR players in our team, at least whatever that's our team in Asia and the World Cup. But women should at least have played Women's World Cup in early 2000 till now. Yeah. It is, yeah, but it's theory, right? So therefore, we're not there. Established 2025 in logo is unnecessary. Yeah, again, it's someone put a thought to it. Foundation years work for certain entities, and certain entities it wouldn't. Yeah, and you mentioned PFC logo. Raj, the less I say, the better. I was involved when we originally set up the Ramdas, Punjab, setup, logo, and all that stuff. You know, I don't know. It's the current one is sorry. It's too comical for me. It's not a serious logo. The thing is, we are exactly in the position when Juan left. Thanks for the current management to create the same mess which started by removing Havas. Yeah, Blue. Yeah, because the problem is you depend on the quality of the players, and the coach has certain ideas and thought processes, and it doesn't work, right? And it's you have the quality on the field, but the question now is, how can you turn that potential quality on the field into performances and results? Right? To me, that's the whole question. But can we see that? Can it work? No, it doesn't. So therefore, for me, yeah, very difficult, very difficult. And Mohun Bagan has a lot of issues to solve and to sort. Who knows? Mohammad Superchan may bring back Steve Coppell or Ferrando, as they have only like to hire managers whom they know. That's a big danger. Habas needs to be in national team. Yeah, Raj, but I don't know. I think if he stays in India, I think he'll stay with the Inter-Kashi setup. But let's wait and see. Forget about players. What are coaches' status after left ISL? Wants to know. See, some have moved up. Juan Fernando was in Cyprus, then in Greece. I don't even know if he's still in Greece or not. There's Buckingham, went back to Oxford United, got them promoted, and now is working in the Saudi Pro League. So to name two, and others, one would have to research a little bit and find out where they are at the moment. I think having a historical symbol architecture of the city it represents is really important when designing the logo. Does it really mean that? Again, I'm just asking. It's like I go back how we designed the Mumbai City logos, with the Mumbai train being the sort of anchor in that logo. But I like, as I said, SC Delhi, I like the logo. I like the logo from what I see. So yeah, that's why I say there are others, as I said, Punjab FC, for example, is something which I don't actually like. But where is Steve Coppell? Is he still doing management? So as far as I know, I thought he's retired. And still, final say for ISL will be with AIFF. Yes, Nixon. So, that's what the situation at the moment is. Why would African origin players not play for the African nations? Some very interesting con players, but they refuse it. Kuku, some of them still have hope to play for the countries that not of origin, but where they're born or where they're playing. So some of them hope maybe to play for France or a Netherlands or a Belgium or Germany or in England or Spain or Italy. That's one, and others, for example, like Zinedine Zidane's son, Luka, who's now going to play for Algeria, is realizing that at his level he's not going to play, right? So that's the reality. Or Jürgen Klinsmann's son, of course, born in America, and his wife is American, but Jürgen Klinsmann's son being picked up by the US as a goalkeeper, right? This was definitely too good coach for ISL, says Blue. I totally agree. India never utilized its city community for sports. Cities are of African origin and the physique of sports like football. So however, they did. Jude Sidhi, former goalkeeper of Salgaonkar Sports Club at the time, even played a few matches for India. I think he was goalkeeper when a certain Kalyan Chaube came to Salgaonkar. And so therefore it has been, but after that I've not heard after Jude Sidhi, I've not heard anyone from that community actually making it. And this community thing is something which is nice with the idea, because earlier today someone asked about, we need players from Punjab and Haryana to come in and play at the top level and whatever. It sounds easy to try and do that, but you should not fixate yourself for players or regions, and that's something which I always say. Very, very important in my opinion. It's like taking a flat on rent, but to do anything, you will need permission from AIFF. It could lead to extortions, considering our Indian bureaucracy. Yeah, Nixon, that's the problem. Your landlord is in charge, but your landlord saying you have to invest into refurbishing your flat. Yeah. When SC Delhi revealed the logo, people initial impression was it was designed by AI, no effort in logo making. It's mentality. I wouldn't agree. I mean, as I said, I've seen so many logos over the years. I don't know, SC Delhi. I don't know. It's one second. Let me just have a look at the Delhi logo again. I mean, honestly, I like. It's simple. It's nothing extraordinary, but this fire and then this yeah, eagle is eagle. No? Supposedly, could have been worse. I don't know. I don't know why. I see SC Delhi another flop like Delhi Dynamos. Well, let's see. You know. So we should just have facilities to get players from everywhere. Good ones will come out of it. Yeah. Again, that's what I'm saying. That it doesn't matter where we are or how we are. We need players from across India, and if that doesn't happen, then we are making us smaller than we should be, and that is something which I feel is a big problem at the moment. And therefore, for me, we should get players from across India, wherever they're coming from, because otherwise, we're going to miss something, right? So to me, we need to figure out to get players from across India, across any state. Yeah. So therefore, for me, that's something which we need to make ourselves bigger than rather smaller. Sir, will Reliance still bid for tender since they were reluctant to pay 50 crore to AIFF? Would they accept 37.5 or do they think it's still overvalued? Well, sir, they wanted to pay zero. And you move from 50 to zero, and now you say you go up again to 37.5. So therefore, for me, if you ask me, I'm not sure where this. It is Indian football, so yeah, not sure where this journey will end, but it is. Let's hope. A certain Benjamin is getting help from Subrinia. He's from India. Yeah, but Zorawa, let him play. As I said, Indian football's biggest problem are our fans who are just hyping things left, right, and center, and we're forgetting the substance. So that's a big problem in my opinion. When is the last date of tender? Shouldn't that end already? No, good question. And originally, of course, 15th of October, 16th the tender document out. They said originally 2nd of November last date. Now they're saying 5th of November, but the queries haven't been answered. So you need to give people who are potentially willing to bid time. After your answers, maybe they have some more questions, more queries. No one knows. We're stuck with that. So therefore, I hope, yeah. In my point of view, scouting is the biggest problem. Is we have everything info FS. No, we don't. Scouting is not our biggest problem. But my coaching. Coaching is a bigger problem than scouting. Raj, in my opinion. Indian football have been hyping him as the next big thing. Recently played in UEFA Youth League against Porto. Yeah, but there are so many players have played with UEFA Youth League and have never become pro. So therefore, let him become pro, and then we can discuss him. The city community people's physical attributes are good without proper nurturing training. When they will struggle, just look at African nations. Okay. I think Fancourt has a chance if Reliance pulls out. Utsav, I don't think Fancourt will bid in the end. They just asked questions. That doesn't mean that they have going to place a bid. They're a broadcaster. They're not a commercial entity, so it doesn't make sense. So, yeah. So therefore, I don't know if your thought is right on that front. What went wrong for Moon Super Giant, your opinion, embassy gameplay? Aman, they're a mess. So You know, so Mohun Bagan is not there where they need to be. Dempo gave them good fight and everything, but hey, anything about that potential foreign investor? Utsav, there is no foreign investor, right? There is people have shown interest, people have asked questions. That doesn't mean that they will invest into the ISL. That's that's why if um, that's why we need to be very, very careful. And to me, that's going to be the question: how can we sort ourselves out in a way that we will know what happens? And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what if a foreign investor, DC investor, or will anyone bid at all? That they had questions and they're asking questions doesn't mean that they will bid. Differentiate between those 2 points. If they're going to bid, great. Isn't Vijay Thetri have when he played in South America? Yeah. Now he's back in India playing at Mumbai City, and he has to prove if he can play at ISL level. Hi, Namit. Jai Indian football. Yes, Jai Indian football, but that is a big if. Will you do a live stream tomorrow? Zoravar, I am planning to do one tomorrow for the FC Goa Inter Kashi game. So the second match, yes, I want to do one. Let me see if my work schedule allows me. By the way, let's give I-League players chance in national team argument. Blue, again, why did I get angry a little earlier when people are trying to convince me that, that Dempo is this, Dempo is that, or the ISF players are this and that. They're not even understanding the gulf of difference. And in my opinion, so therefore, yeah, it's the way it is, and we'll have to figure out how we can get out of this mess that we are in at the moment. Is this tender for broadcasting or commercial right? I'm a little confused. Can one just bid for broadcasting or further? No. What's up? It's a clear commercial bid, and it's a commercial thing, and if you buy the commercial rights, then you have to pay the AIFF that 37.5 crores. You have to. What about prize money? Do you have to pay prize money? So that's directly another 16 crores on top of that. Who's going to organize and run the league, because that's extra cost to you? Broadcasting, do you earn revenue, or do you have to pay a broadcaster to broadcast? So yeah, and so that's the reality. In sports, generally broadcasting pays for it, but here we have to pay for because the broadcasters don't see value. If the broadcasters see a value, they would buy the rights. We wouldn't be talking about this. Listeners reduced to such a low that even Monmouth fans want him to be released. Yeah. Rather, yeah, that's the reality. Why would a foreign firm interest in ISL? Goku, it's not interested in ISL. They're doing their homework. These foreign sports management companies are scouting the world for rights. They look at the rights. They will talk about the rights, discuss the rights. And if they're interesting, they will bid for the rights. That's how sports marketing works around the world. Is there any difference between throwing away money and being Mohun Bagan, Super Giant, and East Bengal FC manager? Blue hard, tough, but no. If you say it that way, no, there is no difference. That's the sad reality of the managements of these two clubs at the moment. It's very, very sad to see that how East Bengal, Mohun Bagan operate, because it's nowhere near the way that it would need to be, right? And so it's I don't know if and when we will be able to figure out those things, but that's a reality, and we're not moving in the right direction. So yeah. So it's very difficult to move in the right direction given the circumstances. If Liston is released by Mohun Bagan, I believe FC Goa would likely bet on him. Nixon, I don't know. Why would you sign Liston? You have Bryson, you have Udanta, Boris, So which is your favorite ISL team? Namit, I support two teams in the ISL. And that is because I've worked for them. Mumbai City, because I set them up in 2014. And then between 2017 and 2019, I set up Round Glass Punjab, which later on turned into Punjab FC. So I have a soft corner for both these entities. These people in management think Indian football is in the 60s. Yeah, Raj, that's the problem, you know. So what would happen if they win the bid? Would it be Coco? What? Coco? Goku, are they bidding? Simple question. Are the foreign entities bidding, or are they just checking out what is this bid about? So you have to differentiate now. So they are not saying that they're going to bid. They are asking questions to figure out, does it make sense for them to come forward and bid for these rights? Very simple. So therefore, that's something which these entities are trying to figure out. Is it good? Is it bad? Should we do it? Should we not do it? That's the reality. Will they bid? I don't know. Do I think? Do I know? I don't know. Again, it's not about me, so therefore, yeah, that's the challenge we find ourselves at the moment in Indian football, and I don't know if there's a simple answer or solution to the matter, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. Right at the moment, I don't see any solution to it, but let's wait and see. Again, the bidding is open. Are all the bidders public? Have they all interacted with the AIFF? Is there someone who's interacted with the AIFF without AIFF telling us that they've interacted with them, or with KPMG? Yeah. One thing I realized while in cycle repeating same things, AIFF is doing their yearly coaching mess, Mohan Basu is doing coach mess, team mess, AFC, etc. Even doing coach mess, player mess, conspiracy theories. Yeah. La Liga has VAR, but still referee blunders, money allegations. So where is us in front of it? Raj, look at Turkey, where Jose Mourinho made that allegation. Oh, you know what? There's a betting problem in the Turkish football system with referees. And oops! Suddenly, yesterday or day before, it came out, that over 300 referees in the Turkish system are actually have betting accounts, and I think 150 of them are actually officially betting and all that stuff. So the problem is, we are, again, on the referees front, and I've said this in the last 2 years, VR is not going to be the one shop solution to our problems, right? Refereeing is a problem, yes, no doubt about it. But is there a easy solution to it? No, I don't think so. So therefore, we'll have to wait and see, right? These are supposed to be pillars of Indian football. Blue. We now know why Indian football is where it is, because these so-called pillars have been part of the problem rather than part of the solution. That's the reality, right? That's the reality of Indian football. As I speak with you, this is the problem. We are, as you say, it's a cycle, and it's a dangerous cycle, right? So if we're not going to discuss the things going forward in the right way, nothing's going to happen, right? People live in their realities, and there are certain people who love to celebrate the ISL, let them celebrate. There are certain people who love to celebrate the I-League, let them celebrate. There are some people, and I don't know. I honestly don't know where how can we get out of this. So a foreign made video saying after being the worst football federation. It's not one of the good ones. Is it the worst? I don't know. It's always a difficult one. Is this the worst? Is that the best? This, that, everything. It's subjective. Good night, Raj. Good to have had you. See you in the coming days. When the country's football struggles, there would be a savior to come and rescue. Who should be for Indian football? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know who that savior is. Is there an opportunity for a savior to crop up and help Indian football? I don't know. I would love to see someone, but I don't see someone coming forward and saving our football in some sort of form. That's the problem. Sir, after Sunil Chetri, next Indian best player is Lanza Changpe. Namit, if you ask me that way, I've said this and I would think so, yes. I don't see anyone of the level of a Changte in Indian football, sadly to say. But that's how I feel, how I think, and how I believe that's a fact. And therefore, yeah, it's other players need to step up with Sunil retiring. And therefore, I don't know, not sure if who will be that player to make that step and take us in the right direction. Yeah, Very difficult. Very difficult. Chunk is doing it. Democracy is coming. Yeah. I don't know if it's a democracy issue or, again, what is the issue, but Indian football has a lot of problems, a lot of issues at a number of areas. And if we don't rectify them, we'll not move forward. Right. 1 hour, 45 minutes plus, meaning 105 minutes of an Indian football discussion on this Tuesday evening. Yeah, it's very difficult to figure out where we're heading with all the problems that are there, and a lot of people not willing to realize that we have problems. And that's something where AIFF, Indian football, the clubs, the entities, academies, everyone, fans need to wake up. Rudra says AIFF be so big that it's cool to hate you. It's doesn't matter if the AIFF is big or small. It's just do the right thing. AIFF, clubs, leagues, state federations, state associations, academies, fans, coaches. Everyone needs to do the right thing. That's the concern. Zorawa says Gute Nacht, and I will also say good night for now. If you like the conversation, do leave a like behind. Share with other people. If you haven't, subscribe to arunfoot. Again, closing in on the 3,200 mark. Grown substantially since the last few weeks. And tomorrow, yeah, a watch along. FC Goa versus Inter Kashi. So let's see if the next I-League team can cause a surprise. And as I say, watch the short videos, hype my videos. I need your support to grow this further because this is the most honest, direct conversation that we'll have in Indian football. Thanks and good night, everyone.